44 unicorns in 2022.
Yes.
That's a story. We only had 1 or 2 in 2023. But I think that our entrepreneurship journey as a nation, I think, has now got global recognition.
Yes.
The fact that we have foreign money coming in to back young people, because people have made money. It's not that they haven't. And so I think the interest will continue.
Yeah.
And I think that the ability of youngsters to deliver value will 100% be there.
I thought maybe we can just start by kind of telling, just kind of sharing with us that, to be entrepreneurial today versus when you all started out, it's a bit of a full toss, but still, how much has that changed? I mean, what do you need to be successful as an entrepreneur today compared to when you all started out?
Yeah, you want to go first?
I think the mindset is easier today because of all the examples of successful startups. I think that there is more backing from the family, men or women, young boys or young girls. The risk-taking mindset is just much higher than it was when I started, at least.
I speak to a lot of colleagues, and I think for me, when I started off, I used to always look for people who can solve problems. I think today's generation, we have to be problem spotters, not problem solvers. Because frankly, there isn't any time to solve the problem. You're only successful if you can spot it before it can happen.
Interesting. We're celebrating entrepreneurs, and we're celebrating just the spirit of entrepreneurism. But the 4 biggest poster children of Startup India, Ola, Dream11, Byju's, and Paytm. All 4 are in some kind of trouble, and they're all trouble for different reasons. Ola, to some degree, has taken, maybe they were too aggressive as a business. Dream11, there's retrospective, it's a regulatory problem. Byju's is a governance issue, and Paytm, I don't know how to describe that problem. But so the 4 biggest. And the 4 most inspiring names are suddenly now coming into question in a sense. So while we celebrate, my question is, the risk appetite that Zia ji was talking about, is that something which, you think still stands even today?
Well, I'd answer it in 2 ways. I think, firstly, I don't know many industrial groups that haven't gone through their highs and lows. So I think if you go back to the 30 years and the 40 years, you'll always find the cycle on that. So I think to actually hurl it and spotlight a few, everyone's gone through their cycles. And some of the best groups best managed groups of that. And I think there is a time and a place for it. So that would be my first answer. I think second, we give too much spotlight to the top of the pyramid, because today we're also celebrating, and I've seen that from the awards here, actually the middle of the pyramid of India, which actually represents the best. And I think there's enough spotlight there. There's an incredible amount of strong passion. Governance is an issue. I think that comes from maturity, but it also comes from the investors that come into the company. It's a 2-way street. And I've always maintained that, because I think when you need that mentoring and guidance, that's when you need your board of directors, you need your investors to actually give you that. Otherwise, like I give the example, if I had a 16-year-old son, and if he took the keys at 2 o'clock in the morning, drove the car and banged it up, I think I need to have 50% of the moral responsibility as to why he did that. And I think today, that's how you need an entire board to function and an ecosystem to function.
Zia ji?
I don't think I disagree with Ronnie. I think that, the jury's still out on those 4 and what they will do and what their journey will be, and I don't think it's necessarily all going down the tube.
Yeah.
I think that there are a lot of, so we had 44 unicorns in 2022.
Yes.
That's a story. We only had 1 or 2 in 2023. But I think that our entrepreneurship journey as a nation, I think, has now got global recognition.
Yes.
The fact that we have foreign money coming in to back young people, because people have made money. It's not that they haven't. And so I think the interest will continue.
Yeah.
And I think that the ability of youngsters to deliver value will 100% be there.
And one thing that I think even Swamiji touched on a little bit is that there's a certain attitude that I feel when I meet startup entrepreneurs. There are a few in the room today who we all kind of know, and friends of mine also. You can call it a junoon, you can call it whatever you want, but it actually comes across as arrogance. There's a certain kind of conviction, and that kind of sometimes becomes into this kind of arrogance. In fact, it's become a thing that the tech founder, the tech startup guy, and how he or she, the swag of does that sometimes come in the way of navigating the tough job of entrepreneurship?
No, I think you need self-conviction. That's your only reservoir you have, right? Otherwise, you're not going to have any setbacks or failures. The only thing you can fall back on is your self-conviction. So I think that tanking up is very, very, very critical. I think the two things I worry about is a sense of entitlement. I think today's generation, also all of us and entrepreneurs, start with a little sense of entitlement, and that worries me, because I think I've grown and I've been a product where I think I've survived 30 years of more failures than successes, primarily because I don't think I start with an attitude of entitlement. So that is something I would watch out for. And I think like any other place, when success overtakes your perception of life, I think that's the other one. So that too, I think, are two things we need to watch out for. But otherwise, I think today, the whole spirit of the nation is that tomorrow is going to be better than yesterday.
Of course.
So if that's the case, you need to go with that.
Yeah. And India is kind of just lined up, right? Everything is kind of pointing toward, all over the world, it's all India, from each metric you look at, India is the best place to be doing business. Is there anything that scares you about being a business person, entrepreneur in India?
It's ours to lose.
Ours to lose.
If, throughout my business trips to the West and to the South Asia, if anybody is not excited about India, I've not heard it.
Yeah.
It is our decade, unless we do something wrong to ourselves. And I think just as a democracy, aspirational set of youth with the world in our hands through our mobile, we just need to stay the course. And the course has to be one of governance at the end of the day. That's what will get our nation through and make this trillion whatever.
Yeah, but government, sorry, you want to add something?
No, I was going to say, actually, optimism is phenomenal, but I think it needs to come with a sense of realism. Okay. And that would be one aspect. The second one I do believe is that we might be a 5 trillion economy, and I'm sure we'll get there. But the income divide in this country is something that I think we should all be concerned about. Because I think if the income disparity grows and grows, we can't be an absolute developed country unless we can have some more sense of wealth balance and some sense of income parity between people. I can see that because I run a not-for-profit and I run a for-profit, and you can see the stark reality in how you want to do that. So I think if we don't take the aspirations of the 600 million people to account when the other 600 million people feel achieved, that's going to be a problem.
And that's kind of, the moral position from which government keeps getting involved, especially in the startup world, right? They're always some regulation, and they're always struggling to keep up because there's so much, technology is so many steps ahead of regulation and governance and just the law. So is that something, Ziaji, that would kind of concern you, that government and regulation is not able to quite figure out how to deal with this all these entrepreneurs and this kind of...
I think the more government stays out of it, the better. Unless there's a reason for government to intervene.
The government's intervened in fintech, government's intervened in edtech, government's intervened in
the
all
RBI
kinds
has
of tech.
intervened because they see some systemic issues, so that has to be addressed from a security point of view of the payment system.
Yeah.
But you look at our classic IT sector, there was no government regulation and intervention. So I think maybe the only comment is that when there is intervention, it should not be knee-jerk. and one bad apple should not spoil the other thriving apples in the sector.
Yeah.
That will come with the regulator's sense of how it's spread, which you and I don't know about.
Yeah.
There's a lot of data that we don't have, which our regulator has when they decide X or Y.
Yeah.
But I think that the less regulation, obviously the better.
Yeah, yeah. But dependency.
I would say, Anand, actually, regulation today is becoming more reactive than proactive. That's because everything is changing so fast. And that means for most people to actually preempt something, because it takes a year and a half for research and a regulation to pass through the entire bureaucracy, by which time things have changed. So we need to be realistic for that for next decade, 2 decades. I think regulation will be a little bit more reactive than proactive.
They're
and when you
already
hear
reactive,
reactive ones,
right?
yeah, then it just sounds like knee-jerk, it sounds stronger, it sounds preventive, it sounds all the negative things to it, but that's how it's going to pan out. And that's the business environment.
And so what's your advice to the entrepreneurs? Like, how often should they engage with government? When should they engage with government? At what point do you feel like they need to have, their sort of concerns taken to a larger platform? Because generally they kind of work in a silo. They know their customer very well, of course, but they kind of stay about, everything else they kind of stay away from.
Well, I think it's tricky. You have a conversation that is too preemptive, and you can be opening up doors that don't need to be opened up. So I don't think there's a clear advice that go out there and engage with government or regulators, because actually, in a sense, the more you self-regulate and the more you do what you want to do, and the more you're under the radar, I think that's one way to look at that. So self-regulation in an industry where I think people get together and form some sense of cooperation is very important.
But you see, there are so many consultation papers, there are so many press articles, where if regulators have started expressing concern, you've read it, right?
It shouldn't be a surprise.
It shouldn't be a surprise. And so if you have your own sense of good advocacy and a rationale and a logical reason for this or that, and you're seeing it coming, then go and talk about it to industry associations or whatever. But it's very rare that a regulator does something overnight.
Yeah, so they always give enough signs and indications. D2C businesses, we keep hearing about dependencies. That's a big part of, all these dreams that entrepreneurs have.
Zia wanted to understand what D2C was, she asked me. So Anant, please explain to Zia D2C.
No, I understood.
No, I mean it because actually I also wanted to understand.
Direct to customer.
There's a fine line between B2C
That
and D2C.
we all understand.
Okay, so essentially the market all over the world kind of gives a premium to companies that are able to establish direct relationships with the consumers, and so that direct to consumer, direct to customer relationship, when it becomes a business model, is kind of what most D2C businesses are kind of aiming for. But the dependencies for these businesses end up with a few people, whether it's a telecom operator, whether it's big tech, Google, Amazon, Jio, whatever. How do you recommend for entrepreneurs to navigate these dependencies? Because at some point you build, in my industry, we built, so across the world, you've seen businesses built on Facebook and Google's algos, and then the algos change and your business are wiped out. So, and a big part of entrepreneurism is that you kind of just pick you pick platforms to get access to.
See, well, there are two parts to it. I think when you're starting up, you need to obviously, the other option is to go B2B and start. But I think if you're determined and you're clear that it's a B2C, you'll have to open up your channels. I think that in India, price sensitivity is a big problem. I think we spend too little time understanding the consumer. We're already starting to figure out what's the search words on the social media, and the herd mentality comes in. I found 9 out of 10 companies less focused on understanding their consumer, where they can find them, how they want to communicate with them, and what are the other channels outside of the, what you call the conventional, the big 5 that are looking at India. So that to me changes the face of what needs to be done. So I think if you're building it at the grassroots level and down up, there's incredible businesses actually being built there. Yes, there are duopolies in some of the segments, but it took 10, 20 years for those duopolies to happen, partly because of reactive regulation, partly because of many other aspects there. But I think today there are many other sectors where you've got 5, 7, 10, 15 players. You've mentioned telecom, but automotive is different. So that for every one industry here, there'll be another industry there. But I think for the younger startups, I think from day one, we need to double down and on understanding a consumer more, where we can find them, how we communicate with them. Because actually the mediums you all talked about where we spend a lot of money is a 10-second, 5-second communication. How do you sell a brand? How do you sell a communication? How do you sell a service or a product? If all you have is a 5-second search element to communicate. You're not building a brand.
And so is that an advice you would say, that invest time, money, effort, energy in building a brand? Because I see this all the time. They just spend on channel sales. They just talk about selling widgets on using Google,
Yeah, that money is going for awareness. Let's not fool ourselves. We're not building a brand. We're just building a sense of awareness.
Okay, super. And if we can move to, Ziaji, anything to add? We move to the investor side, then I'll get to a quick rapid fire. Just walk us through the investor's mindset in India, the Indian investor, whether a large family office or whether it's a, whether it's a firm like Renuka's, or, what do you think it'll take for an Indian sort of money bag, or how you define it, to become, KPMG or Morgan Stanley or KKR? What sort of, are we more risk averse than the foreign guys are? Are we just, we're just going to take time to get more experienced? When do investors kind of become and have that kind of clout and that kind of sure?
I think you're seeing that happen right now. I think Renuka just talked about multi-billion dollars.
Yeah.
You've got 5, 6 other Indian names. I don't think any of them are aspiring to be a Morgan Stanley or a Goldman Sachs at this point, for full due respect on the other side too. I don't think anyone's aspiring for that. And I think today, if you look at the Indian stock market, for the first time, even for the new economy companies, there's a lot more Indian money backing it than foreign money. Less and less people are going to Hong Kong, New York, London, San Francisco, and Boston for road shows, and they've ever done so before. So I think we're in a good place.
Do you feel, you deal with all the sort of so many, all the foreign money and all the, you've seen on both sides.
It's all different, right? You have the larger PE funds who definitely have an IC to respond to, the LPs who are large themselves, so they will be more cautious. But then you have the venture capital funds that have been investing before the slowdown last year, a company every month. They are willing to take the risks for smaller amounts of capital, Series B, Series C, Series D. You see large sovereigns investing in Series C and Series D funds. So I don't think one size fits all at all. I think that by its very nature, the larger the fund that is here is going to have to be more answerable for its bets in India.
Super. Should we do a quick rapid fire for both of you? Please, it's a fun section, so you have some fun with it.
I just had one thing, since we're at an appropriate forum here, that I wanted to comment on, because I heard statistics that we're making now projections of in 2030 or 30% of, it'll take 10 years for 30% of board to be women. I just feel today in the benchmark of what we're doing here, I think we're recognizing great amount of achievements. But I think we kind of missed the benchmark a little bit on women achievers, because at the end of the day, we always benchmark it with corporate. And I think maybe over a period of time at the Express Group also, I think there's an incredible 360-degree approach to what women bring to the table, that we don't always index it with corporate achievements or board achievements or whatever else, but I think it's something that's very important.
If I can come in there, I say this a bit often, maybe much too often, but I think both men and women have not figured out that most of the corporate problems are because men are on the board, right? If you see traditional boards which are consisting of men, those corporates have had serious problems. So what is this woman thing? I have not understood. See, why do we have to select a great woman, but we can have an average man? So I think we need our benchmarks and mindsets to change. It's not a man or a woman. It's a good, intelligent, reasonably committed human being. And I think the best way for corporates to have the 30% much faster, Ronnie, is, I have always said, set goals, KRAs, with financial incentives or disincentives to your middle managers. Your middle managers should be asked to report how many men, how many women, how many left, why did they leave, how many have you brought in, what's the story, here's a check which is a little less or a little more. It works. Money talks. Otherwise, most middle managers, if women leave, say, oh, what to do, she had to stay at home. That doesn't work. You make it a financial commitment for you to make them stay in the office. How difficult is it to have a conversation? It's not. Men can't have that conversation, so let the women have it. But men have to command that conversation be had, because even today, who rules corporate boardrooms? It's not us, it's you.
So because you said that, so this is our third year. The first year, Sheryl Sandberg was our keynote. The second year, Indra Nooyi. And I asked both of them a question I want to ask both of you. And, it's a stupid question to ask, I know, but I'll still ask it because I like the answer. What is that, just tell all the entrepreneurs, what is that one reason why you need to do this affirmative action and ensure that there is that gender diversity in your workforce? What is that reason? Is there a
The world is not equal without us.
what,
If we hold up half the sky and we are two wings of a dove, if we are not there, you're inadequate, ultimately.
so your business isn't equipped to deal with its customers?
It's less equipped.
It's less equipped.
It can be better equipped if you bring us more into
there's more diversity.
Exactly.
Anything you want to add to that answer, just as a reminder?
I think conscience keeper is there. I think my wife is my conscience keeper for almost everything I do.
Yeah.
So as far as I'm concerned, on the internal board, the family board, we always keep looking at the corporate board, but the family board is 10 times more powerful than the corporate
There's
board.
no choice. No?
Okay, super. So quick rapid fire. I'll ask a question directed to both of you.
1 minute. Guruji himself said so.
Yeah.
It's his mother.
It's
Take
mother,
care.
yes, of course. Okay. Experience or education?
Experience.
Yeah.
Experience.
Trump or Biden, who's better for the global economy?
Don't ask.
I think for India, both will work.
Okay. For global economy?
Biden.
Biden, okay. What should an Indian startup fear more? Being iced, China-Taiwan war, disrupted by big tech, investors turning activists hostile, tough journalism, retrospective laws, or rising cost of customer acquisition?
None of the above.
Governance.
Governance, okay. One regret in your professional career?
That I may not have given it the focus, everything that I wanted to do. Today I do a lot more on focus. At that time, at the earlier stages, you're very opportunistic. So if I'd focused on a few more things in life.
Contrary to what Guruji says, the guilt that Indira Nooyi had.
Okay. The one achievement in your professional career you're most proud of?
Hopefully is yet to come.
The one moment you're
The one
proud of,
achievement in your professional career you're most proud of?
staying the course.
One thing Indian entrepreneurs can learn from American entrepreneurs. I'll ask you first, Yaji.
From American entrepreneurs.
Yeah.
I don't know, risk-taking.
Yeah, there's a big dearth out there. I think we'll both pass on it.
Okay. One thing men in business should learn.
Sorry, all our Indian boys are out there, right?
Yeah. Yeah. One thing men in business should learn from women.
To have more of them on the board.
Take deep breaths.
Okay. The one entrepreneur you're most inspired by, and the one legal mind you're most inspired by. The one entrepreneur and the one legal mind you're both most inspired by.
Yeah, I'd say Elon Musk.
Elon Musk, okay.
Ruth Ginsburg.
Ruth Ginsburg, okay. The one ingredient that you need to be a successful entrepreneur today that wasn't crucial when you all were starting out.
Sorry.
The one ingredient that you need to be a successful entrepreneur today that you didn't need as much when you were starting out.
Less reliant on outside capital. Not think that burning is good forever, all the time.
Okay.
Have a balance sheet that ultimately delivers value.
The bottom line. We need the bottom line.
I think you need to be thick-skinned because it's quite a lonely journey and it gets lonelier.
Okay. There are 4 management styles: authoritarian, democratic, laissez-faire, and coaching. These are the 4 well-recognized management styles. Which management style do you most get gravitated to invest in? And which management style do you like being against when you're sort of,
Which style I don't like?
you like being against when you're on the opposite side in an argument, in arbitration, whatever, in a litigation?
I like to win. So I don't know which one that is.
Which style do you like to invest in? Which style resonates most with you?
Yeah, I mean, Democratic would be, out of the four, I'll pick that.
Ronnie.
Super. Thank you guys so much. Thank you for making time. Thank you for being here.